A very good evening and a warm welcome to Buddhist Mahavihara's Facebook page. Tonight in the Dhammadana series, we have joining us live Venerable Brisbane DhammaRakkhita Thera. Bhante will be sharing about Introduction to Mindfulness. Now I will introduce Bhante to the screen. Good evening, Bhante.
Good evening.
So before we proceed, let me share Bante's profile for those who have joined us today this evening. Venerable DhammaRakkhita is the founder of Samahita Mindfulness Group, registered in Australia, where the Venerable usually resides. He is originally from Sri Lanka and migrated as an accountant professional about 17 years ago to Australia, where he had a successful career. As a layperson, he has been seriously practicing meditation and mindfulness for over 22 years under many different teachers until he found his current teacher, Most Venerable U Dhammajiva. His dedication and understanding of the practice and teaching gained him the attention of fellow meditators who started to rely upon him for the advancement of their practices. This has paved the way for the Venerable to start Samahita Mindfulness Group and carry on formal teaching of mindfulness as a layperson. Uh, he has been teaching now for over 6 years in Australia, Sri Lanka, Canada, and the Middle East, where he periodically conducts full time programs. In addition, Bhante also conducts half day virtual sessions to the followers in these locations on a weekly basis, and he has been a regular speaker on mindfulness in Nepalese Buddhist Association and Queensland Sangha Association. So, about a couple of years ago, he has renounced his luxury to dedicate himself to the sasana and full-time practice in and teaching. He is currently he's a resident monk in Sri Lanka Buddhist Vihara in Brisbane, and currently he lives in Nisarane Vane in Sri Lanka. So now I would like to invite Bhante to start today's Dhamma session.
Thank you very much, Udayani, for the introduction. To start the program, we will say Namo Tassa, Sadhu, Sadhu, Sadhu. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Ekaino ayam bhikkhave maggo sattanang visuddhya soka parideva samatikkamaya dukkha domana sattagamaya nyayasa adigamaya nibbanassa saccakiriyaya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So this phrase, which is in Pali, I think this lovely audience as Buddhists may have heard many times in the past. So to start the program with this lovely verse, I'm going to give you first the meaning of it. It says, "This is the only way, monks, for the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation, for the destruction of suffering and grief, for reaching the right path, for the attainment of Nibbana, namely the four foundations of mindfulness." So that's the simple meaning or direct meaning of the verse I have taken. I usually don't do these type of programs. In other words, I don't usually preach as such. I don't give a sermon. What I usually do is, if I preach, I will give something to take home. So the Buddhism or Buddha's teaching is not something to be heard and forget about. Because in the Buddhist world, this has been happening for centuries. but the world has been going backward. So there definitely must be a reason, not just in the world, but if you take specifically the Buddhist community, why it is going backward, right? So we are listening to so many sermons, we are hearing so many sermons, and a lot of monks are preaching as well, but things are not improving. So the simple reason for that is we basically have an attitude, or our basic desire is to involve in the main elementary parts of Buddhism rather than getting into the actual path that the Buddha has introduced to the world. So that is why Buddha was born. Generosity is a very important as well as very primary initial step to get into the path. People love doing that. A lot of people are very generous, but it was there even before Buddha's time. And not only generosity, morality, or sila we call it in Pali, was also something that was there even before Buddha's time, right? And even what we call meditation was there before Buddha's time. So what did Buddha introduce to the world is a question, and that is what I am doing. And not only myself, there are so many monks in this process, and I have just become a part of that chain to introduce this specific message that the Blessed One has given to the world. And the specific message the Blessed One has given is in this particular verse I just recited from the Four Foundations of Mindfulness. It says, Ekayano ayang bhikkhave maggo. Ekayano means, in some books it says, one way. Some books it says, one and only way. And there are books I have seen just says only way as well. So of these three explanations or definitions of what ekayano means, I would like to take the second one, which is one and only way. What is one and only way is the four foundations of mindfulness. So in this talk, I am not trying to give you or explain the four foundations of mindfulness. That's the big tree. That's a full-blown flower. What I'm trying to do here is to plant that small tiny seed in your heart, if possible, for that tree to grow. And if that plant is, if that seed is planted well, and if you look after it, if you water that when necessary, if you provide necessary fertilizer, if you can provide necessary light, then there is no one in the earth who will be able to stop that seed growing and bearing flowers and producing fruit, right? So therefore, my endeavor today is to plant that seed. What is that seed? It is the seed of mindfulness. So, although I have taken a big verse, I'm not going to explain that word. I'm going to take what is that ekayano ayam bhikkhave maggo. What is this one and only way? The mindfulness. And when you say mindfulness, when I usually go and introduce mindfulness to the crowd, and especially in my mother tongue, I ask, what is mindfulness? They says what they say is mindfulness is remembering and knowing. And mindfulness is not just remembering. Mindfulness is something much deeper than that. And there is no specific definition of mindfulness available in the discourses. So far, I haven't seen any. But there is one discourse, some people say, that it is mruti, which means remembering, but mindfulness is going much deeper than remembering. Mindfulness means awareness, being aware, knowing, right? So when we say awareness, everyone may say there is nothing much in it. It is a very simple thing. We all are aware. Without this awareness, how can we do all this work? So one may feel that way. But the awareness, that feeling is correct. That attitude, that thinking is correct. But the mindfulness that the Buddha explaining here is not the general mindfulness or the awareness that pops up in our head. Here the awareness means awareness of the present moment, this very particular moment. So if you are aware of this particular moment, then that adds or gets closer to mindfulness. It is not the mindfulness again, but it is now getting closer to mindfulness. So the first thing in mindfulness is you should be aware. And the second thing is that awareness should be about what is happening right now. And the second thing that is necessary for the mindfulness to complete, it is not only just right now, it should be right here as well. Right? So if you are aware the present moment at the present place, and the most important thing is this present place and present time or here and now is always there. There is nothing for you to do for that. And you will have to add the next element for the mindfulness to be complete. You should be aware of the present place and the present time of yourself. Nobody else. Right? So when we consider these four things that constitute mindfulness, we can take one by one and dig deeper to understand the real meaning of mindfulness. So I said it is the awareness. When I say awareness, currently what we do is we become aware of what we want. What we don't want, we just forget about. Right? So therefore, the awareness we are talking is not an awareness that we have decided to be aware of. It's not something that we have really selected, chosen to be aware of. It has to be choiceless awareness. No matter what, we just become aware. Right? So it has to be, so far as the awareness is concerned, it has to be choiceless awareness. And the second point that I took was now. Now is again a very big question so far as human beings are concerned. Most of us don't live in the present moment. Our mind is traveling faster than light to the past, to the future. We will be thinking about the past, things we have done, things we haven't done, and things we would have done, and all sorts of things. About the past, we will be thinking. And about the future, we may have billions of dreams, billions of projections, billions of plans that would be done in the future. So our mind is jumping to these things every second, every fraction of a second. So therefore, human beings have no time to come to the present moment. But Buddha said, if you are really mindful, it should be done, and it is very much possible. And the third element, third thing that I introduced or included in mindfulness is the place here, right? So again, most of the human beings aren't very fond of having the attention to the place where you are, because you are already there and you want to think about other places. You will be thinking where your wife is, where your husband is, where your kids are, where your kids would go, and many things, and what the politicians are doing, what USA is doing, what other countries are doing, all sorts of things we will be thinking. But not the place where you are sitting now. When I say place, it is not your country. It is not the room. It is not the chair. Here means that little contact you will have on your bottom with whatever the surface you are sitting on. That is all here. Everything else is not here. Everything else is there. Right? So when you reduce our attention in this manner on the timeline and on the space line, in other words, if I may use the words time and space dimension, right? There is an intersection. That intersection is here and now. So why we take here and now for mindfulness is because Buddha has taught, preached, given the world the gift of experience. Buddha has not said that you will see the results after your death, or after 5 minutes, or in the next hour. Buddha has said, I'm giving you an experiential teaching. You can see it for yourself. You can verify it for yourself. You can do that immediately. So if you want to do it immediately, if you want to have the results immediately, good or bad is a different story. Right or wrong is a different story, right? But if you want to have the experience, it is right here and right now. So in that manner, Buddha has thin sliced the time and thin sliced the space, and to that intersection, you have been brought in. The person who wants to walk on the path has been brought in. That is the individual, right? So when I say individual, that is me. If I am walking on the path, it is me. If you are walking on the path, it is you, right? So far as mindfulness is concerned, we are not talking about anybody else. We are not talking about whether whether your wife is mindful, or whether husband is mindful, or whether kids are mindful, or whether the teachers are mindful, or the politicians are mindful, or other drivers on the road are mindful. Is none of our business. Am I mindful? Is the question we are always asking. So therefore, mindfulness is awareness of, choiceless awareness of here, now, I am. Right? The billion-dollar question is, who am I? And when I teach these things to kids, and I'm asking this question and asking them, who are you? And all the hands go up, and then they keep telling, oh, I am Smith, I am Jason, I am Lee, and I am Kelvin, and all that. Kids will give their names, and I'm telling them, no, without your name, can you explain yourself to me, then they are dumbfounded. They don't know what this man is talking about. And then I ask them, I tell them, we have something called body. Then immediately they get where I'm coming from. And they say, yes, I am a body and a mind, because they have gone to Dhamma school and they have learned things. So they say, okay, without name, without what I am doing, without where I am living, if I explain myself to someone, I'm a person with a body and mind, right? So that is I am, right? So for adults, I go, even for kids, I go a step further. We don't have anything called body as such. We don't have anything called mind as such, right? Because all these are processes. All of us, when we were born, we may have been weighing around 3 pounds or 3 kilos, I'm not quite sure, whatever it is, and long about 9 to 12 inches. Now we have grown beyond 5 and close to 6, some of us, and weighing 50, 60, 70 kilos. When did this happen? No one can give any specific time when this happened. That is because these are processes that keeps changing every fraction of a second. So therefore, instead of saying, I am a body and a mind, I am a physical process and a mental process. And the mental process is much faster than even the physical process. So the interconnection of these two is I am, right? So these are the detailed meaning of the words I include in the definition of mindfulness. So if I remind you once again, mindfulness is the choiceless awareness of here, now, I am, right? And you know the meaning of them now. Okay, so what to do this? What we will have to do is bring I am into here and now. So when you try to bring I am into here and now, it is a big job, right? Even you can't use a crane to do it. It's so much difficult. The reason why it is difficult is, as I said, there are two processes. These two processes are in two different places. Your physical process is sitting there, but the mental process, I don't know. It may be in the moon, or maybe even beyond moon. It may have gone to another galaxy. That is how this Star Wars and the explorations are taking place. We are physically in one place, but mentally it is running everywhere. We have no control over. So therefore, bringing I am to the present place and the present time, in other words, here and now, is a mammoth task. Buddha knew that. Therefore, Buddha said, don't worry about the mental process. You leave the mental process aside for the time being. If you consider yourself as the physical process, we will first take that. And that is where you are. And if we start the journey to go somewhere, you'll have to start from the place where you are. Right? Say, for example, this is Malaysian Buddhist Vihara, and I'm telling someone how to come to the place I am living in Sri Lanka, and I will have to tell him the place, tell him how to come from Malaysia. I cannot tell him how to come from London or Brisbane or Sydney or West Coast or anywhere. I will have to tell him the path from Kuala Lumpur airport to here. So like that, even the Blessed One says, although a human being is a physical and mental process, you have no clue of what the mental process is doing. It is completely neglected. So therefore, leave that aside for the time being. We will consider only the physical process. So therefore, to teach mindfulness and to tame the mind, what we do is we bring the physical process to the present time and the present place. We bring the physical process to the to here and now, right? So by bringing that, indirectly, we are tapping our mind as well, right? So that is how we plant the seed of mindfulness. So now the question is, how you bring the physical process into the present place and present time? And when I say bringing the physical process to the present time and the present place, and of course there is nothing for us to do. Physical process now and here has never gone anywhere. It has been with us all the time. It is not something that I am giving you. It is not something that anybody else will give you. It is something that individually all of us have had for the so many lives we have lived. But it never was mindfulness because we did not bring awareness to it. We had awareness outside, but not to the very same thing that you had with you. So the other day, I saw a beautiful post in one of the groups I'm in. And that post says, someone was searching his mobile using the torch in the mobile. Use the torch in the mobile and looking for his mobile. That is exactly what we are doing. We are looking for happiness outside. We are looking for happiness elsewhere. Whereas it is with us. It has been with us all the time. We haven't had happiness because we have been looking for happiness in a place where you can't really experience it. You have been looking for happiness in a place where this physical process and the mental process aren't together. But what mindfulness does is, indirectly, or I should say strategically, bring the mind to the body and let you observe the body right here, right now. And what happens is, when this is done, you meet the two components of yourself. And when that has happened, that is the time, that is when you meet yourself. Until such time, you don't meet yourself because your mind is all over the universe, only the physical process here. So by bringing the mind to the physical process, you meet your best friend, whom you have been looking for all over the universe, right? So, $1,000,000 question is not understanding what mindfulness is. Of course, you forget this whenever you practice and whenever you want to do this. That is because of our habits. We can change that with continuous practice. The question is how you do it. Once you understand mindfulness, bringing attention to the body right here, right now, we will we should have a way to practice it. We should have a way to do it. Why I'm saying we should have a way to do it is because we haven't done this in our lives. So if we had done this, we won't be here. We haven't done that. So therefore, we will have to train our mind to be mindful, which is very possible. And if it is possible only for a human being. So we are so lucky that we are born as human beings. And we are so lucky we are born as Buddhists. Or we are so lucky we are open to a Buddhist community, even if you are not Buddhist. And of course, mindfulness is not something that is vested only with Buddhists. Mindfulness is something for the entire humanity, no matter what their race is, no matter what their religion is, no matter what their complexion is, no matter where they live. It is a right of all the human beings. It's a human right. So, what we do today is to train that human right, which ourselves have put in the garbage. And we are going to take it out and give it a polish and make it a shining gem. That is why we call triple gem. So once it is done, Buddha will be living in your hearts, not in the temple. Of course, you go to the temple, but you will be in the temple all the time if the Buddha is in your heart. Buddha will be in your heart if you practice Dhamma. The Dhamma is the mindfulness. And when you practice mindfulness, you are part of the community of Sangha because you are on the Buddha's path. So all the triple gems will be with you. So we are going to polish that gem. So without further ado, let me get on to how to do it. To do mindfulness or to bring your attention to the body, there are basically three methods. One is called the intensive method. Those are my words that my teacher have used. And the other is called semi-intensive method. The other is called either application method or day-to-day activities method. Right? So intensive method is what all of us do as meditation. What we do is we go to a quiet place and sit cross-legged and hold our hands on the lap and close eyes and hold our body upright and then start observing breath. So that is just one way, and I will come to that later, and that is called the intensive method. And we usually start our practice with the semi-intensive method. Semi-intensive method is, we call it in the Buddhist communities or in meditation communities, we call it mindful walking or walking meditation. I don't want to use the word meditation. I call it mindful walking. So mindful walking is imperative in practicing mindfulness. The reason is mindfulness is something that you should be able to use in your day-to-day life. You can't live your day-to-day life cross-legged and eyes closed and holding your hands on your lap all the time. So therefore, mindful walking is imperative. And when you use mindful walking, basically at this stage, I would say there are two things that are happening. One is when you come from your day-to-day activities to do the practice, you can't directly brake the vehicle and come onto the practice. So before going to your empty hut or to the place where you sit and do your intensive meditation, after so much of office work and family duties and or other social activities, when you come home, right, you will have to gear yourself up to do the intensive practice. So therefore, before you start your practice, you will have to do mindful walking. That's one reason I say the mindful walking is imperative. It gives some sort of a boost, some sort of energy to do your intensive practice. And it works the other way around as well. In your intensive practice, you will go to the deep layers of your physical and mental process, which gives you tremendous skill of being mindful. And you can take that skill to your day-to-day activities by using the same skill if you try to be mindful doing something. Because in your day-to-day activities, you will be doing things. So straight away from sitting, you can't go to doing. It's like doing a research, right? So when what we do here is, this is the noble quest. We call it Arya Paryasana. In Arya Paryasana, in any Paryasana or any research, any quest, what they do is, they first have the lab research. And once the lab research is successful, they take it to the bit of, they don't straight away take it to the commercial production. They do a field research. And if the field research is also successful, then only they go to the commercial production. It's a similar thing even here. You gain that skill from sitting or from intensive practice, and that skill, instead of putting into your day-to-day activities, you just apply that only in one activity, which is walking. So you sharpen the skill of intensive practice to do one activity and let that cascade, the skill to get cascaded down to the usual activities, your day-to-day living, right? So therefore it works both the way. One is, it becomes an energizer to start the intensive practice, and the other way, the skill of the intensive practice will be bridged to the day-to-day activities by mindful walking, right? So how you do mindful walking? To do mindful walking, you will have to select a path to walk. You can't do that. I mean, not that you can't do it. I don't recommend it for the beginners, for the practitioners, for the newcomers to use going to office or the evening walk or anything as such to do the mindful walking. Because in any other activity, when you walk, there will have some objective. There will have a reason why you walk. But there should not have any objective to achieve when you do the mindful walking to start with, right? So therefore, you select a path, maybe in a park or maybe at home if you have enough space, or in your backyard or in your garden or wherever. If you have enough space, you take a path, and that path is ideally with natural surface, either sand or gravel or what do you call, grass, right? Some natural surface. And it is ideal for you to walk on that path barefooted without wearing any footwear, right? But depending on the climate conditions, you may have to do it differently, but that's all right, right? Especially when I'm practicing in Brisbane during winter, we can't go outside and practice. So what we do is we walk inside, and I usually can't, because I fall sick when I walk on tiles. So what I do is I wear socks and walk on a carpet, right? So ideal scenario is to go to natural and go barefooted. But if the conditions don't allow you to do that, it is okay to change those things to suit the conditions that you live in, right? So once you have selected the path, that path should be a straight path. It should not be a curved path, straight path, and it is ideal if that path can be flat, right? No much of uneven surface. But of course, if there is gravel or if sand is there, there will have slight unevenness. That is fine. And the other thing is, You should be able to walk at least 25 to 30 or at least 35, 25 to 35 steps on that path. So once you have selected this path, then the first thing you do is you stand at the beginning of one end, at the beginning of the path, and then you will have to hold your hands by your side, or folded in front, or folded at the back, right? So once you do that, then you are ready to walk. And when you walk, before walking, you will have to take your attention to the sole of the feet and understand that you are standing before walking. And how you understand that you are standing is by feeling the sole of your feet. If you feel, not look at the feet, you will be looking ahead, about 2 meters ahead of you. But by standing, you feel the sole of the feet. So if you feel the sole of the feet, then you know that you are there. Now you are ready to start walking. So when you start walking, what you do is, in your head, you bring your attention to the walking process. So while walking, you initially say walking, 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 and saying that you keep on walking at the normal pace that you used to walk, at the normal speed that you are walking, right? It is not necessary for you to change anything. You walk at the normal pace. If you are walking fast, you walk fast. And if you are walking slow, you walk slow. If you're walking at a medium pace, you walk medium pace. And in your head, to bring the attention to the walking process, you see the movement of the legs, you observe the movement of the legs. You see the movement of legs does not mean you actually look at your legs, but you bring your attention to the movement of the legs, and in your head you keep labeling walking, walking, walking. In that manner, you will be able to drive your attention to the walking process. So once you feel, after few laps, you may feel that you have your attention is fairly with the walking process, right? So if we don't label, what happens is our mind will start wandering all over the universe. To stop that, we start with labeling, right? So when you feel that your mind is with the walking process, then you go to the next stage of advancement of the walking process. Instead of saying walking, walking, you specifically see the movement of the right leg, and specifically see or bring your attention to the movement of the left leg. So when you do that, you change labeling of walking, walking to labeling of, when you move the right foot, you say right, 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 and left, 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 left. So you bring your attention to the right foot and the left foot, and try to not only just bring the attention, and then try to have your attention to the sole of the feet and see what information that you can have when you place the foot on the surface. When I say information, anything. It may be the manner in which you place it, or it may be the sensations, or it may be anything. Whatever that you feel when you, or whatever you observe on the sole of the feet, you try to grasp. So why you need to grasp this information is because those information will provide, will give you an assurance that you are mindful. Otherwise, you can come and say, okay, I was mindful and I was aware of my right foot, I was aware of my left foot. That is not enough at all. You will have to prove that you are mindful. To prove that you are mindful, you can say, when I was walking, I saw the right foot, and this is how I saw the right foot. But my left foot, this is how I saw my left foot. So when you closely observe, you may see the differences between these two. So then you are providing proof that you have actually experienced your right foot and left foot. So in that manner, by labeling right, 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 and by labeling left, 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 and having your attention to the sole of the feet, by gathering as much information as possible of the sole of the feet of both right and left, you gradually bring your wandering mind to your lower part of the body. Once the mind is with the lower part of the body, then it's completely different ball game. So I'm not going to give all the other details, other steps that you will have to follow. But if you can start with this for your walking mindfulness, that's a great start, right? And then if you feel that it is not necessary to label, you can just observe without labeling, please do so. It is not compulsory to label. Labeling is used simply to bring your attention to the activity you are doing. But it is ideal if you can observe without labeling, right? So initially, beginners, it is hard. So this is why we introduce labeling, but it is not compulsory. And coming back to, and of course, here, there will have disturbances. You may have disturbances from sounds. You may have disturbances from visions. You may have disturbances from thoughts. You may have disturbances from aches and pains. Then what you do is a question. There, what you will have to do is, of course, there will have disturbances, and if these disturbances are not disturbing you, there is a sound, but still I can observe my right foot and left foot. So don't bother. Just keep observing right foot and left foot. There is something that you see, beautiful flower, or beautiful bird, or beautiful girl, or a boy. If that sight is not bothering you, you don't bother it. You keep observing your right foot and left foot, right? But if that disturbance is overwhelming and you can't bring your attention at all to your right or the left foot, this will basically happen when you have thoughts, then don't forget the definition of mindfulness. If it is overwhelming, you have become the thoughts. Keep walking, but label thoughts occurring, thoughts occurring, thoughts occurring. Accept it. Don't fight with it. Yes, true, we are going to bring our attention to the walking process. But if my mind is not there, then what can we do? Should not fight with yourself. Mindfulness means awareness of here now I am. So I am aware that I am not a walker now. I am a thinker. So accept or label thoughts occurring, thoughts occurring, thoughts occurring. And then see what happens to thoughts, and then see what happens, how the mind drives to the feet. Start gathering information of that process, of the disturbance. So whatever happens, your mindfulness then will continue. So this is the change that Buddha introduced to the world. This is what most of the teachers missing as well, unfortunately. Right? This is just the beginning. And that's about the semi-intensive method, semi-intensive technique, and the beginning part of it. And there is a bit more to go on it, but I'm not going to give all that here. And the next is, once you have completed your walking practice, ideally, we ask in our retreats, we do 1 hour walking and then go for 1 hour sitting. But if none of you are practicing or haven't practiced in the past, I would ask you to start with 15 minutes. You walk 15 minutes in the manner I just mentioned. And then at the end of the 15 minutes, set an alarm and just keep walking. Completely concentrate on the walking, or concentrate on the mindfulness of walking. And then once the alarm goes off, set the alarm for another 15 minutes and start your intensive practice. Which is now, in walking, we have brought our attention to the lower part of the body. Now we try to bring the attention to the upper part of the body. In that manner, we complete our attention to the whole body. I told you at the beginning, we are trying to bring the mind or the mental process to the physical process. So the lower part of the process is done, a very simple thing, which we have been doing all this time. And we are going to take now even another simple thing, a breath that we have been having from, at least in this life, from mother's womb, which we have not used, we are going to use it. What we do is, we go to a quiet place, the best or the quietest place you have, wherever you live. It is ideal if you can go to a temple, because temples are usually closed. What Buddha says is, go to a forest or under a foot of a tree or to an empty hut, right? So you select your place and sit in a comfortable posture. Buddha says sit in the lotus posture. That is the optimum. That is the theoretical maximum. So we don't, if you can do that, well and good. But if you can't do that, sit in a comfortable posture. If you can't sit cross-legged, sit half lotus posture. Or there are so many sitting postures. So I'm not going to go into details of postures. Only thing I'm telling is sit comfortably, right? So that you can sit for 15 minutes if you are setting the alarm for 15 minutes. And the most important thing is, you'll have to hold your spinal straight and the neck upright. Don't lean onto anything. I repeat that. Don't lean onto the backrest of the chair or to walls or any poles around. Have your spinal independent without leaning onto anything, right? So after that, you bring your attention to the sitting posture. You bring the attention to the sitting posture means you don't turn your eyes, you don't roll your eyes to see anything, because your eyes are closed, hands are kept on the lap, right? And after sitting in that manner, you bring your attention to the body, sitting posture. Bringing attention means you don't roll your eyes. This is a big mistake that most of the practitioners do, because they want to see the body or because they want to see things. They keep, although eyes are closed, they keep rolling their eyes to see things. No. Let the eyes be as it is. You just try to feel the body. We just let the body to give whatever message it has. That's all we are doing. And then the body keeps talking all the time. You observe those things. In the sitting posture, when you are sitting, there are so many things happening. Hair is growing, nails are growing, and the digestion is happening, blood circulation is happening, and the clothes are touching your body, and you feel heat or cold or something in the body. And of course, respiration is also happening, right? So you sit and ask the body what message it has. So if the body is so warm, observe that. If you feel only the touch of your back to the surface you are sitting on, keep your attention there. And if you feel the blood circulation or anything in the body, just observe that. Or if you feel only the clothes touching your skin, just observe that. And in most of the cases, once we keep on observing these things, after some time, once you settle down with everything, there is something which is constantly happening, which is the most important thing as a living being, this respiration. Sometimes, for beginners, it is very hard to observe or see this respiration. So this is why you start wherever you have the attention to. And when you are quiet and calm with that, then you gradually get closer and closer to the subtle things that is happening in the body. So then you may have glimpse of your respiration. So that respiration you may feel in your nostril, or sometimes inside the nose, so at the entrance of the nostril, or you may feel it in the chest, or you may feel it in your tummy, wherever, doesn't matter. You observe that, right? So even here, when you observe something, if you can't bring your attention, even here we use the labeling technique. If you feel the clothes touching, you can label touching, touching, touching. If you feel the bottom touching the surface you are sitting on, you can label it as feeling, feeling, feeling. Or if you feel warmth of your body, again you can call feeling, 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 right? If you feel respiration, then you start labeling the respiration. So if you feel the respiration in your abdomen, right, and when the abdomen is moving, you label that. When the abdomen is rising, you can say rising, rising, rising. And when it is falling or when it is contracting, you can say falling, falling, falling. Or if you feel that in your chest and you feel the chest is going up and down, there also you can use the same thing: rising, 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 falling, falling, falling. And if you feel it at the entrance of the nostril, and you, when the air is going in, you can label it as in, out, out, out. Or it may be applicable even if you feel it inside the nose. You bring your attention in that manner to the respiration or whatever you are observing by labeling. And again, if you can observe without labeling, well and good. There is nothing stopping you, stopping labeling. It is not compulsory. It is just to bring the mind to the activity that we are trying to bring our attention to. And again, here you may have disturbances. Of course, no sights because the eyes are closed. And if you have disturbances, still the same technique. If it is not overwhelming, if it is just there, still you can observe whatever you are observing in the upper part of the body. You just observe that. But if the disturbance is overwhelming, you start labeling the disturbance. You don't fight with it, right? So this is how you bring your attention to the entire body. By walking, you bring your attention to the lower part of the body. By sitting, you bring your attention to the upper part of the body. I have just given the very basic steps for you to practice. So therefore, as I said, I don't preach, I do sermons. So this is a sermon of doing. This is not just a preaching for the sake of preaching. So I told when I was invited, this is how I do things. And the next time, or if if this goes further, so this must be accompanied with practice sessions. I usually have sessions every week with other practitioners, and there are 4-hour sessions. What we do is we walk for 1 hour, we sit for 1 hour, yeah, we'll have a 1 hour talk like this, and then 1 hour Q&A session. In this manner, we hold hands and walk on the path of the Buddha. So I think time is up. So I don't want to take any more of your time in Sunday night, possibly in Malaysia. May have to go to work tomorrow, but still, if the organizers permit, I would like to take any questions that you would have. Thank you very much for listening. Hope you gained something from it. There's a question already from Tan. Says, when walking mindfully, can I chant in, out, in sync with breath, or chant, may I be well, happy? Or, that's a very good thing. Very good question. These are things I'm very sorry to say this. These are things even I have heard and I have done when I was practicing, right? When you, if you are bringing your attention to walking mindfulness, our attention should be with walking. Our experience should be with walking. Of course, breathing is happening, but while walking, we don't try to observe the breath, at least to start with. For an experienced practitioner, it's a different story. and we will have to see how his practice is going, and then we can talk about the breath. But for a beginner, since this is my first talk today, when you are walking mindfully, no Buddha, no in out, no may I be well or happy. It is just whatever that relates to your walking process. Something of your walking process is acceptable because this is an experienceable, verifiable path. So should not bring anything artificial, right? So therefore, the simple answer without taking long is no. You should not do that. It's only either walking, or for a beginner, right, left, and then gather as much information as possible of the walking process. Any other question?
Thank you. No, not right now.
All right.
Thank you, Bhante, for sharing these insightful steps with us. So, before we come to the close today's session, I would like to invite Bhante to do the Anumodana to the Devas and the departed beings.
Can I do it in Pali? Is it okay?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Um, Today we have taken a great step towards uh, walking on the path of the Buddha, so which generates tremendous amount of positive energies, and those positive energies can be shared with all the beings in the universe who are willing and expecting for such blessings and energies. To do that, we will chant the usual stanzas to transfer our merit, we call, to all the living beings in the universe. So you all can chant with me. Ittavata chammehi sambadang punya sampadang sabbe devanumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ittavata chammehi sambadang punya sampadang sabbe bhutanumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ittavata chammehi sambadang punya sampadang sabbe sattanumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Akasatta ca bhummatta devanaga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chiran rakkantu buddha sasana. Akasatta ca bhummatta devanaga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chiran rakkantu buddha desana. Akasatta ca bhummatta devanaga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chiran rakkantu buddha savakam. Idang o nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyateyo. Idang o nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyateyo. Idang o nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyateyo. Imina punya kammena mame pala samagamo. Satan samagamo hotu yavanibbana pattiya. Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo yavanibbana pattiya. Bala samagamo. Satan samagamo hotu yavanibbana pattiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Blessings of the Triple Gem with all of you.
So today we have come to the end of this evening session of the Dhammadana series. Before we end the Facebook Live, I would like to thank Bhante DhammaRakkhita on behalf of the committee, the monks, and the management of the Buddhist Mahavihara Malaysia. I would also like to thank today's sponsors, and I hope you all had a chance to join this session. And also a very big thank you for everyone who joined us this evening and listened to Bhante's Dhamma sharing. Thank you, Sukhi Hotu.